Hi, everyone. My name is Alex Duran. I am out of Tempe, Arizona, and I work for Viasat. For those that know Viasat, we are in the satellite communications business, do lots from satellite communications to Wi-Fi connectivity on airplanes to space and defense areas with the government. And so my role with Viasat is I'm an integration and test lead for the Viasat 3 constellation. So that is 3 geo satellites to give global coverage to the entire world. And so specifically, I worked for Flight 3, which is over Asia Pacific, but recently I've taken on Flight 2 as well. And then almost as a side job, a passion project of mine, I'm the global lead for Viasat's Women's Alliance. And so I'm very, very passionate about, I'm an engineer myself, about women in the tech industry and supporting them. And so I see Sarah Shepis on, and she's also one of my counterparts in Tempe for our Women's Alliance, but also one of the big supporters globally. And so I actually heard about this mentorship program as I was awarded the 20 under 35 award last year from SSPI. And so I'd heard about this program and was really excited. And so my mentor, Andy Steinem, has been amazing. And then I actually took on a mentee myself, Maria. And so it's been a really rewarding experience this half a year. So with that, we'll kick off this panel specifically, which is about industry conferences, how to get involved, why it's important to get involved, and kind of all the background from people who, from women who are very involved in industry conferences. Because if you frequent LinkedIn like myself, you'll see every single week somebody's posting about an industry conference and photos, and so they are plenty, and specifically within the satellite industry, there's quite a few big names in regards to the industry, in regards to the conferences for the industry. SAT Show, Small Sat Conference, Space Tech Expo, Space Symposium, World Satellite Business Week. I'm not getting them all, but that's a lot of the big names. And then there are professional conferences outside of just the satellite industry. So SWE, Grace Hopper, and I also know I'm missing others, but there's conferences not only for the satellite industry, but also from a professional perspective. And so I wanted to give some time to let our panelists introduce themselves. And so I'll start with Dawn, if you wanted to introduce yourself.
Sure. Hi, I'm Dawn Harms. I've been around the industry for about 40 years, at least. Maybe I can just give you a little bit of background. I'm currently an industry advisor, mentor, and board member for several startups. I spent my career as a payload component engineer, and then moved about 10 years after engineering into the sales and marketing world, and have really spent most of my time in sales and marketing, which is, as people know in this industry, it's a highly technical sales role. If you're selling satellites or rockets or whatever you might be doing, but with the tech and space, but I've had a very rewarding career in that way. And my connection with the conferences really has been from the beginning. I was fortunate that my company as an engineer sent me to do technical papers at ESA, I think within my first year. After graduating from college, and I enjoyed that a lot. And it caused me to want to continue that. So whether I was, either presenting a technical paper or later in my career, there were panels and booths and conference attendance and everything you can imagine to leverage our whatever the expertise was or product we were selling at conferences on behalf of the company. So I'll leave it at that for now, and we can dig in more.
Awesome.
Thanks.
And Dawn, you failed to mention that you've also been a CEO of more than one company. And so you've been in senior management. You've been in senior management where you have to approve people going to these things. So
yes,
that's another key thing.
That's right. So executive management, where I'm the decision maker for many of the conferences and who attends and how much we spend and that kind of thing. Yeah, that was very much a part of my role.
Great. Nice to meet you, Dawn.
Nice to
Toni
meet you too.
Lee, if you wanted to give some background.
Sure, I can do that. First of all, I'll say hello. I would say my beginning with satellite started when I was at NASA. So much like Dawn, I started as an engineer, working through the process. I left space for a while and then I came back. Most of my experience with, I would say, conferences and trade shows, et cetera, comes from my years as a chief marketing officer. I was at iDirect for almost 10 years and then other companies since then. I think that certainly this is an interesting topic because as I started my career as an engineer, my presentations and things were very much on a technical basis. And then as I went through the chief marketing officer arena, obviously I was then the one deciding who went to some of those conferences and symposiums since it was my budget sponsoring them. So my experience is kind of like the full range from being that one individual contributor to being a spokesperson for the company to also deciding who presented. So I'm looking forward to hearing what everyone else has to say, and any questions or comments will be greatly appreciated.
Awesome. Nice to meet you,
Toni.
Ustina, do you want to finish us out with your introduction?
Sure, thank you. Hi, I'm Ustina. I'm currently based in South Korea, so it's quite late for me right now. My mentor, Susan, actually suggested that I participate in the panel, so thank you. So I'm currently working for a company called CONTEC. We do everything in ground segment, and then we have 4 subsidiaries that complete our business for satellite manufacturing, Earth observation satellite imagery, and payload development. So with CONTEC, I'm currently working as a business development position, so I'm not really an engineer or doing anything technical. But I've been very fortunate with my CEO allowing me to attend a lot of the trade shows since I've joined. And for the past 3 years, I think I've attended about 50 trade shows so far. And they really range from really small conferences in Africa or other parts of Asia to large ones like World Satellite Business Week, which I actually had the opportunity to attend as a panelist last year. So that was the start of how I sort of got my opportunity to go on stage. And our company actually hosts the largest commercial space conference in Korea. It's our 3rd year. And we went from our first year of 350 participants, and this year we hit our 4,000 participant mark. And we've been growing ever since. And from the first year up to now, I've been acting as the program coordinator. So I've been really creating the program sessions, who to invite to the sessions as panelists or speakers. And then I've been moderating the sessions as well on top of that at our own conference. So I was a business major, had no knowledge of space, but then started working at a space company and had to really catch up really quick with all the things technical and industry and market wise. But I'm really honored to be here and to talk about the industry as well as how to really get into conferences.
Awesome. Well, nice to meet you, Ustina. I also found myself in space and don't ever, the space industry, and don't ever think I want to leave. And so I hope that's the same for you. Okay, so let's kick it off with pretty much the first question of why is it so important for your career to get involved in industry conferences? And so I don't think we finalized on how we want to go about this, but do we want to kind of popcorn, or do we want, if somebody, wants to take it, has a good reason to take it, feel free to jump in. Otherwise, Dawn, I see you first, so I'll point to you.
Okay, so why is it important to get involved? To me, the conference is an opportunity to interact with the entire value chain of the space industry. I mean, whether it is the supply chain, the clients, the potential customers, potential partners, or just future mentors. It's just a great opportunity to network and meet people, and really add to your Rolodex, to use that word still, which I believe provides you currency. It is a currency for your current company. The more people you know, the more contacts you can make, the more value you can bring into your company by making those connections and connecting those dots to grow your business, or to create a partnership, whatever it might be. So it's about networking to me, and meeting people, and just doing it efficiently in the format of a conference or a trade show.
I like that theme of more valuable to your business, because I think we'll get to it in a little bit about how to build a story, but I think that's probably a very central theme to that. So I'll pass to Ustina. If you have any thoughts on why it's important for your career and what you've seen so far.
Sure. Firstly, I completely agree with Dawn on how it's kind of like a broad way to network on a big scale. So, but on the another hand, it really helps with it's what we I kind of talk with my CEO about it. We call the conference kind of like a gossip area for the industry. So all of the real issues and all of the emerging technological trends and everything, you can all find it in real time at the conferences. It's not something you can really find on a website or on a brochure or in an email exchange. Everybody who is related to that industry or that specific area is there in person at the conference. It's where you can really get to know what's out there, what kind of collaborative opportunities there are. And it's really where the real business happens, is what we really call it all the time. So I guess it's a way to really get a lot of information in a short amount of time.
Like that, the gossip of the industry. And I believe it too. And then Toni Lee, did you have anything you wanted to add in regards to why you feel it's important for your career?
I think the major thing, and it kind of leverages a little bit off of what Ustina said, is that it really gives you an opportunity to expand beyond your core. So you get to hear things and feel things that are not just your company or your part of the industry, but that whole. So if you think about it everyone thinks that curiosity is like what drives a career. And if you can leverage your curiosity at conferences and trade shows and really listen and understand, probably the major thing I think is to listen and understand versus necessarily speak, because that's what helps your career.
Listen and understand. I like that. And curiosity. Those were great points there. Okay, so I mean, I think when you look at a high level, it's very clear. Well, maybe it's not clear for everyone, but it's clear to me, right, in regards to why it's important for your career. There's networking opportunities, there's learning opportunities. You can add value to your company. You're continuing to grow within the company and identify different opportunities for your company. But I think one of the main things we've heard is, how do you go about starting to attend conferences like that, especially if maybe you're not in a position to do business development or marketing, where you see those areas attending a lot of conferences, but from maybe an engineer's point of view or an early career point of view, how do you do it? And so let me ping Ustina first. We'll go around. How do you build that story of being able to attend conferences?
I think there's two ways that I know of that can be approached. First is starting out by applying as a speaker to the conferences. I know in that case, the company might not want to sponsor all of the travel expenses, but there are definitely opportunities where there are scholarships available to help fund the travel costs. Second is having someone to vouch for your participation in the conference. So in my experience in our company, we usually do a lottery for engineers to attend which conferences. And a lot of the times, instead of doing the lottery, I'm really vouching for an engineer to go because it's more in their area of expertise. So if someone who is organizing the presence at the events are willing to vouch for someone's presence or engineer's presence at the related conference, then I think it can really help a lot. A lot of support from the team as well as the management team is really helpful as well, in my opinion.
Those scholarships you mentioned, is that from the industry conference itself, or those kind of private, separate things?
It's from the industry conferences themselves, because I know IAC also has scholarships available from SJC, and I know there is some available with WSBW, as well as that show.
Oh, awesome. Good to know. Toni Lee, I wanted to see your thoughts on building your story and how to get yourself there.
I think there are a couple things. I mean, certainly building your story about why you, I think, is important. Certainly from the standpoint of understanding what you bring to the company and what you could do at a conference that's different than what someone else could do. The other thing I'd say, and this is my marketing lens for sure, is that making friends with marketing, if marketing controls the conferences and the budget, is key. I know from my roles that I direct, we pretty much worked very hard to strategically place people in panels, interviews, etc., based upon the brand messaging that we wanted to get across at the time. So kind of understanding how your role can play into the overall company positioning, branding, etc., was really important from my perspective when I was looking at any of the conferences or trade shows and who I would want to put forward. I would also say that as you do that, depending upon your marketing team, leverage your marketing team to really help from the standpoint of making sure the core corporate messages are in what you're presenting, adding your unique view element to make it real so that it resonates with your audience, and then being sure to stick to those corporate messages as you present it, because as you stick to the messages, you become more and more valuable, and then people go reach out to you to bring you in versus you trying to tell your story and become part of it. So it's a much more effective way to have someone come and say, you did such a great job last time. We want you to present on this panel, or we want you to do this interview or this video. It then, in many ways, you're creating a story about yourself that leverages your expertise, but also shows the value to the company.
Awesome. And then I'll Dawn.
And I'm probably going to have to leave soon, just so you know.
Sounds good, Toni Lee. We appreciate it.
Sure. Yeah, I think it would be helpful with upcoming conferences. Look at the whole slate of conferences for the year. Try to figure out, where you might fit in and what value you can bring to the conference and talk to your immediate supervisor, talk to the market. I totally agree with whoever has the money, go work with them. Marketing is usually where that comes from. But I remember one of the executives at one of the companies I worked for who used to say, he had a finance background, the CEO, and he would say, conferences or booths don't sell satellites in this case, he would say. And I remember he said it so many times that I developed an internal, kind of elevator pitch to him about, how, he had the wrong perspective. It was about relationship building with customers and reconnaissance on your competition, and customers really buy from people they trust, and having those meals and with your customers and building that trust over time was the way you can get them to say yes over time. Anyway, he kind of gave up. I exhausted him with all my reasons. But it's true. I mean, it's actually true, and that relationships are better face to face. And so if you can find a way to be part of the team, and I always think that conferences are attended by teams on behalf of your company. They usually have marketing, they have sales, they have, a technical component to it. I see Manal on the network here, so we would bring our insurance folks along because the entire insurance industry was part of the conferences. So there was an opportunity to really reach all the elements of your company of your business through the conferences, and telling the story about the value and placing yourself in those roles. Whether you start by just doing booth duty and then you get in to see some of those conference sessions, you meet a few people, and it can grow from there. So I'm a big advocate of saying why you want to do something and pursuing it with, wherever the decision makers are from within your company. And as a person who would make those decisions on behalf of the company, I would listen to those stories. I would try to place people who were interested in participating, because that helps careers and it helps the company when you satisfy people's interests. So,
from your point of view, and clearly approving a lot of people to attend, was a potential speaker on behalf of the company more valuable, or was it, supporting in different roles? Would help make that decision.
Right. So some of the big conferences have many opportunities. Depending what company you're with, you can get multiple slots in speakership. So you would always want to place, your CEO as a thought leader, and you'd, try to put them on the thought leader panels. Lots of value in having an executive on those kind of panels. But on the technical panels, you want to highlight your technical expertise and your discriminators and your new product that you're rolling out, or your new capabilities. And so you're going to want to put your CTO or some other spokesperson there. So panels were very good, I would say. But I don't know. I really enjoyed having the opportunity to connect the annual insurance industry briefings that we would do. Manal, maybe you can speak to that, but the value of connecting it with a conference was super valuable. There were so many aspects that were valuable. Supply chain, you could meet all of your suppliers. You could bring, an engineering team to do that and further your negotiations, because those were very practical meetings. So there was value everywhere. I would say panels, the opportunity to participate in a panel session, and there's good fit in some of these large conferences like the satellite conference in DC, and some of the other ones in Asia. I think there's a good opportunity to find kind of even earlier career people to fit in those positions.
Awesome.
On the panel here, Alex, but I just wanted to pick up on some of what Dawn in particular was saying, and ask the question back to Dawn of you mentioned about, you know, just doing booth duty, or maybe Toni Lee did. If someone has an expertise in a product that is being pitched, or, you know, that the company's trying to promote at a given time, and you get the opportunity to say, I'd be happy to be a booth babe. That's not a gender specific term. And have a pitch and use that opportunity to let others in your company, in particular, you said the marketing or executives or even clients, hear you make that pitch, hear you explain what you're doing, hear you talk about things. Does that then provide something you can leverage to be able to speak on a panel at a future conference, to show, in other words, taking booth duty as a first step that lets you get in the door and show what you can do?
Yeah, I think it does. I think that you know, booth duty. I've done booth duty. I mean, as an executive, I've done booth duty. It has value. You get walk-ins. You get new business. You meet new, you know, companies you've never heard of that you can. That's the part that I'm always amazed at. How many new businesses you learn about just by being present, being available, and mixing it up a little bit. So, you know, whether it's panel session and who you meet afterwards because they want to come and ask you a few questions, or, you know, the fact that you've got your brand and new product, you know, messaging out there for the year, because a lot of these conferences are annual, so you know you have to phase your communications. But I think there's a good you know trajectory from booth duty to panel presentations to also. I think that the SSPI-wise and SSPI meetings that are always connected to these conferences, it's just more networking sessions. So they're so invaluable to be able to attend, that you would love to be able to get as many people from your company to get that exposure as possible. I think this just adds a lot of value to your overall workforce and careers.
Yeah, I'm just thinking of Ustina's sort of trajectory of going through different steps of participation in conferences to organizing to then running panels.
That's awesome.
Did you see that, Ustina, as sort of a set of steps that you moved through?
Yeah, so I guess I've been on booth duty since I've joined. And so I totally agree with Dawn and you, Andrea, on how booth duty can lead up to participation in panels. It's definitely a way to show off what you know about the company, what you know about that field, what you know about your role as an engineer or in marketing. But I think it's also, I didn't start off going to international conferences right away. I started off quite local. So I also attended conferences in my city. I attended a lot of university fairs as well. So that also helps with showing off how well you're good at communicating and how well you're good at, I guess, giving the message that you're trying to give. Yeah.
I just wanted to add something to what Ustina was saying. In the short time that Ustina and I have been working together in our mentorship relationship, which has been, I think, quite terrific. Ustina has risen in her company, has been promoted maybe twice in within the last 6 or 8 months, and I think a lot of that has to do with her involvement in conferences, and she has grown to moderate, to organize, to get speakers, to invite speakers. And there are so many aspects of working in conferences and participating in conferences. And that was, for those of you that know me, that was an important part of my career. From the time I started in the late 70s. I mean, I think so much of it is about relationships and establishing relationships at conferences, and establishing relationships as Toni said, with the marketing people that are figuring out, what panels to put together, and from the very beginning, being available to participate in those panels. A lot of my career was spent moderating, and Ustina and I spent a lot of time talking about moderating panels in our last couple of sessions. So yeah, I think that the value is in so many different ways. My very first mentor in the satellite industry, those of you that have been around for a while may remember Sidney Topol, who was originally the CEO and then chairman of Scientific Atlanta, and really a giant in our industry. And I was consulting to Scientific Atlanta, and Sid Topol had me. I walked around a conference hall with Sid, and I think the first one might have been at probably NAB, National Association of Broadcasters, which is a huge conference. But walking around the conference at the exhibit hall with Sid Topol was a huge education for me, because I saw how he would approach a booth and start asking questions of some young sales guy that was working at the booth, and he learned so much, and I learned so much from watching him, getting information from the sales guys. And he said, people love to talk about what they're doing. They love to talk about what their company is selling. And all you have to do is get them talking about what they do, and you learn everything about the company. So on so many different levels, conferences can really put you into a great position in the industry, from walking around an exhibit hall, to doing booth duty, to establishing relationships with marketing people, to moderating panels, speaking on panels. At all levels, it's a terrific way to move yourself forward in your career.
I just like to add something. Let me add something to here. What I hear is that, you have booth duties and what, but there's also one very important role for technical expertise. There are a lot of live demonstrations at these exhibits. And if you have the technical know-how and you can get yourself into agree to support that demonstration, that's a huge contribution, because a lot of times sales and marketing people don't really have that expertise, and they would be more than happy to have a technical person coming along just to make sure the exhibits or the demos work on the moment. So that I would encourage technical people to look at as an option. The other thing I thought was interesting, as Susan has said, is to meet executives. And Dawn mentioned that. We all have had to do booth duties. Standing around is a very tiring experience, and no executive wants to stand around like they're doing nothing. So that is a time when you can go to an exhibit and approach an executive standing around looking for someone to talk to. And they'd be happy to share, whatever questions and information with you. But it is important that you have an elevator pitch ready to go, so that it's not an awkward introduction. It's an easy introduction, and both of you will feel good about meeting each other. And the last thing I'd like to mention is that it's not only you look at yourself as a part of the conference, you really want to do some homework and look at it as a leverage to meet your own clients of the company, your suppliers, your partners, your distributors and suppliers, those are all relationships, and competition. That's a huge piece of it, because you may know them on the websites and discussions and presentations, but to walk around and look at their booth, what are they doing? Who are they attracting to their booth? That's a lot of positive energy that you could bring back to your company.
Susan, I have a question about your role as moderator and formulating kind of the subject matter for the various panels, and how you did that with the conference organizers. How much input did you have to that process, and how could somebody get involved in that?
Well, I am of the opinion that moderating a panel you're playing the most important role in the panel. And I spent a lot of time planning either whether or not I was supplied with the speakers or I selected the speakers. On a panel that I was moderating, I spent a lot of time and effort putting together, making sure that the panel, that the discussion would flow, that there would be interaction, that I often would ask the panelists before the panel to supply questions to me that they thought that they would want to discuss, that they would want to address, topics or questions that they would want to address. I made sure that I contacted every one of my panelists, either in a group or individually, before the panel. I spent a lot of time in preparation for the panel, and so I would say that I had a fairly large influence on the way the panel went, and I would make sure that I was a bit of a bully because I wouldn't let people talk too long. And I wouldn't, and I was not a big fan of having many slides. So, and in fact, I think that in recent years, speakers on panels use fewer slides and talk more about the topics. So yeah, I would say that I spent a considerable amount of time making sure that there would be a flow, interaction, no lectures, that we had questions from the audience, and I would make sure that I had some input into how the panel was run and how it went.
How the topics, Susan?
What about the topic?
The selection of the topics. Do you get to add to the panel discussion and recommend topics?
Well, it depends on the conference. I mean, some conferences I ran, so yeah, I would decide on the topics along with the other people that were involved in putting the conference together. If I was given a topic, or if I had the opportunity to select a topic, and often I didn't, I would, look for, if I wanted to be involved in a conference, I would find a topic that was already one of the topics selected for the conference and that related to my area of expertise, my knowledge. And I would pitch whoever was running the conference on why I would, why I wanted to moderate that panel or speak on the panel. Or if I was a speaker on a panel and somebody else was moderating, I would directly go to the moderator and ask, you know, and pitch my own expertise and say that I thought that I could add something. But
I'd like to
again,
pick up on that. I'd like to pick up on what Susan just said, but also what Dawn had said before. And one of the keys, I'm bringing this back to how you get to, if you're not at that kind of at the senior level where you can, you know, pull these things together, leveraging the relationships, which may be relationships that you get from going to a conference and listening to a panel and then talking to the panelists and the moderators afterwards, even if you're not on the panel, so that when somebody is putting together a panel, they have you in mind. They know that you might be someone who would be good to talk, or even seeing who is going to be moderating panels, because oftentimes that's available, and reaching out to them because you've established that relationship, reaching out to them and saying, I see you're going to be moderating a panel. Would you be interested in me being on that panel to represent the company, or having your marketing person do that for you? But if you establish the relationship, then what you can do is to be able to get yourself on a panel by talking to the moderator or talking to one of the other panelists to give yourself that kind of a position. And I think that's again back to leveraging the networking. And I think Chiedza has a thought here.
Yeah.
Leveraging relationships, which is key.
Well, and I want to pull it back because Ustina had kind of said, because I think speaking at conferences is probably very daunting for people who have maybe not had that experience. And so, Ustina, you said you got involved in very local things first and got experience and kind of continued from there because, you know, huge conferences like SAT Show will be overwhelming. If that's, you know, your first time. But I think I heard some people mention there's a lot of different ways to get involved in Work Boost and learn and take in everything you're seeing and how the speakers are, what they're speaking on and how they're speaking, and meet contacts, as well as I was going to say there's opportunities outside of industry conferences. I think somebody mentioned maybe like early career services, in which you can be on panels and get some of that background and learn how to network at that same time to be most effective at an industry conference, to kind of take that all in. And so I do want to come back to Chadiza. Sorry if I'm not saying that correctly. I know you had your hand up and you've now lowered that, but feel free to jump in if you did have a question.
Oh, I actually wanted to add on, and I think it ties in with your last point when you mentioned that when you don't have really a lot of experience. I would say SJC is a good start, because when you join, I would say it's easier to join as a volunteer to organize the event than to be an attendee at the events. So if actually join as part of the organizing team. So I remember I was part of the organizing team for the space conference the Fusion Forum that happens in Colorado every year. And that one, it was the way they chose the delegates, it was so difficult. I was like, if I wasn't part of the organizing team, I wouldn't have experienced this conference. So I think joining the organizing teams is a good way to actually see the type of delegates they want, the type of expertise that they're looking for. And it could be a way in for your company to actually see, okay, fine, this conference is about this, but what do people really look for at this conference? So I think just volunteering and starting from the organizing team is a way in and a step to see each conference if they allow volunteers to actually assist in the planning process.
That's a great point. And I'm just thinking from some previous background in which the universities a lot of times will hold conferences as well. I'm thinking of in Arizona, ASU recently held a space conference in which I myself reached out to the organizing team because I want to help build that in the future. And so it didn't work out this year, but next year they have us on and helping to build that space conference. So that is a much smaller conference that's very localized and something, to look at as an opportunity to, reach out, make connections, and get involved. So I know we're about 8 minutes left of this hour. I think I have one last question. I think, Joan, you had maybe proposed as part of this. And so what are the real obstacles for attending conferences? So Don, I'll let you, if you want to just speak to that, maybe how to overcome those obstacles as well.
Well, budget is always one. That is used as an excuse for limiting the attendance at conferences, and it's a valid one. So how do you get to be one of those parties who get tapped to go to a conference? And I think we've touched on some of this before, and that is, first of all, research all the aspects of the conference to see how you might fit in, and if you can fit in on a panel, if that is something that you can do, you can make a pitch to do that to your marketing group in order to place you in that. And if not in that immediate conference, to look for something down the road for you. You're going to have to sell that and make sure you have the skills to do all of that. But so that's one way. If there's a booth, and booths are very, very expensive, so very few companies tend to have booths. But if there is a booth, you can offer to do booth duty. And the obstacles, I want to say that I think I remember paying for my own way in, or offering to pay my own way into a conference. This is really radical, but I really wanted to attend. It was a little bit early in my career, and the company then sent me. So I don't know if that works anymore, but the obstacles are usually money and finding fit. We've sent, at the various companies that I've been with, we've sent people to go to an SSPI event at a local conference because that was important. And that's a way, in kind of close to the conference, not quite in the conference all the time, but that's a good way to start as well. I'm going to plug SSPI because I think there's a lot of value there, and then networking with those wonderful people and SSPI wise as well to figure out other tactics.
I'm going to leverage off that with something else that Joan and I had discussed, which is I'm kind of going a little bit out there, but just personally is something I'm open to doing. If one of the things I would hope we could get SSPI wise in particular to do is to have some of us who live in the cities where conferences are be willing to say, if you can get your company to get you to the conference, they'll pay for your travel, but they won't pay for your hotel. I have a guest room. You can stay with me. And
wow. That's nice.
That may be another way of overcoming an obstacle.
Well, it's always the cost side.
Susan, you're muted.
It may be an obstacle. It's more of an obstacle to a speaker or a potential speaker, and that is almost everyone is nervous when they haven't spoken publicly, and they're expected to speak either on a panel or as a moderator or in some way, and there's nothing, and maybe it's more women. I've worked with a lot of women who I've helped overcome their fear of moderating or speaking on a panel. And I think that there's nothing wrong with being nervous. It's part of the process. And the more you speak, the better you are. That doesn't mean you're not going to be nervous when you've spoken, at 100 conferences and you got and you have, your 101st. But you do get more comfortable, you get better, and you need to be prepared. And I just think that it's an obstacle, but you can get over it and get good at it.
So Alex, I would picking up on that and something when you talked about the university conference there. I'll make a pitch here for another part of SSPI-WISE, which is the STEM working group. And getting involved, if you want to start speaking in I don't know if it's a less stressful, but at school events. It may not be at a university conference. It may be, I don't know, a local, rocket competition or a local STEM, a science program that's in a local school, and talking about, and it's a way to get out, depending on what your company is and what they do, there might be opportunities, but there's certainly, in terms of just the STEM, SSPI-WISE STEM program, trying to increase education and awareness for girls of the career opportunities, and talking about career opportunities. It's a way to practice talking about both yourself and what you do and the industry.
Yes, that's actually kind of how I got started. Not that I speak a lot, but over the last 10 plus years of my career, started to get involved speaking at less anxious opportunities where you're speaking about your company, and then you get involved in your company. And now early career, like Sarah Shepis and I are very involved in a lot of the early career stuff because we're willing to speak. And I'm not going to say I do a great job each time, but because you're willing to speak, you keep working on that, and you continue to build that muscle. And so I know we're almost at time. I did want to leave on kind of a thought, Don, you started out with about bringing value to your company when, building your story. I think that is something that has to be part of your story, but also one, I think there's nothing wrong with ever asking. Ask your manager, ask your mentors at your company, ask, and realize the value you can bring the company at the same time as part of that ask. Because I think that's your best opportunity to meet the goals of the company, to grow yourself, and to put yourself out there. And so I know everyone says, the worst you can get is no. But honestly, I think the more you ask, the more likely you are to put yourself in a position to attend in the future. Maybe it's not this exact conference, but you put it in people's minds that you want to go and you want to learn. And so they'll think of you in the future. So I know we're at time. I know we've had lots of questions come in. I don't know if we want to see if there's any questions or if people have to drop off. Really, really appreciate all the thoughts, Dawn, Stina, Joan, Susan, Andrea. Really appreciate all the thoughts. I myself have honestly never attended an industry conference, and I had wanted to. And I'm taking that away from this because I remember sitting at the 20 under 35 dinner, celebration dinner last year, and talking with all the other 20 under 35 awardees, and the conferences and the connections they had, and people knew each other from meeting at these conferences. That was one of my big takeaways from that, was like, I need to start getting myself involved because I want to learn. I want to grow within the space industry. And yes, I know a lot about payloads, but that's because I work on a payload program and I want to continue to learn about different types of programs. And so that was just a big takeaway for me. And so this was a great panel because it's kind of a kick to get back into it. So. Well,
Okay.
thank you. If anyone has any questions, feel free to come on. I know we're about time. Otherwise, Andrea, I'll hand it over to you. I don't know if there's any closing comments.
No, I think I'll be sending around, as I mentioned, these other links on some other things. Encourage anyone who knows somebody else who's involved with SSPIYs or your mentors or mentees to participate more often. And Dawn, I'm sorry that you had gotten dropped off the email list originally, and I'm glad you are back on now. You're in my spreadsheet, and we will. I look forward. There's going to be an SSPIY's I think all member meeting on the 26th, so everybody should get something about that from Tamara, and then hope to see you all then. Thank you very much, Alex, for doing this, and thank you, Dawn, for agreeing to be on the panel. And thank you. Dawn has just put her email address in the chat if anybody wants to hop over there real fast and grab it, and and with other questions, and look forward to seeing everybody again. And we'll be reverting back to our normal third Wednesday of the month starting in July.
And by the way, Ustina, it's what is it, 1:30 in the morning where you are? Ustina?
Oh, Ustina.
Yes, it's 1:30 in the morning.
Thank you for staying up late. I hope you can
And
sleep
I was
late.
complaining about 8:30. Okay. Well, thank you, everybody. It was good to see you all.
Thank you.
Bye.